Hi, guys, and welcome to a special edition of our podcast, Better Ask Jay. This is not just another business podcast. If you are a UK owner managed business and seeking advice from a proactive accountant, then this is the podcast designed specially for you. You are not running your business alone. Our podcast can update you with the latest business news and advice and inform you about your tax and compliance. On your side are two experts with more than 50 years of experience advising owner managed businesses. Jason Seagrave, our Jay, advises over 400 own managed business. And I'm Maria Sangurska, your business development manager today. I'm sorry, somebody just knocking on my garden gate. Your business development manager here with more than 20 years of experience in the business growth. So this week it's hot of the press budget special. So let's introduce our expert one more time, Jay. Hi, Jay. How are you doing today?
Hi Maria, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. I'm just, I'm really looking forward to hearing about the news from the budget.
Okay, well, let's see how you feel after I've given you the entire rundown.
That sound nice, Jay. Okay. Um,
Yeah,
so
this is
yeah,
going to be
what's up?
painful.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes, I know. Okay. Before we get into the details, what is the budget all about? Just general picture, please, Jay.
Okay, the budget is the announcements made by the UK government about how they will collect taxes and then spend them in the coming few years. Usually, the speech itself only identifies the key changes, with a lot of the detail followed up with paperwork afterwards. But because I wanted to get this out to you straight away, we'll be reacting today to the announcement made in the speech.
Hmm. What is the background to this budget, Jay? Really?
Okay, well, this is the first budget speech by our new Labour government. The outgoing government warned us that there will be substantial tax rises for taxpayers should Labour take over, despite Labour setting out some promises in the manifesto to leave certain taxes alone. The government itself has also been preparing for bad news by discussing a large £50 billion black hole that they say was left by the previous government that needs to be filled. They've also leaked certain changes about increases to employers' national insurance and minimum wage rate rises. There's also been unconfirmed rumours about capital gains tax, inheritance tax, and pensions. So, one more thing to say: this is not a political podcast. So, the views of here are just about how they affect businesses. We're not doing politics here. We're just talking about what's been announced.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for your remark. That's quite important to notice that we are not represent any parties here. We are here by talking about the business and how the new budget will influence the business owners in the UK. Right. Okay. Well, the time for to be more specific about these budget changes, right? Let's go over the main changes. And I'm here about the minimum wage changes, right? So could you please tell me more about it?
Yeah, so this one wasn't much of a secret. They've been leaking this, but the headline is that the national living wage, which is the wage that is a minimum amount paid to people above 21, is going to increase by 6.7%, going up to £12.21 per hour. And then the national minimum wage, which is for the younger people like my nephew, who's currently on £8.60 an hour. He'll be going up to £10 an hour. That's an increase of 16%.
Oh, okay, all right. So what precisely it means for the business? Can you just give me some example, please?
Well, it means that if you're an employer and you're paying your staff the minimum wage, then from April next year, your wage bill is going to increase by nearly 7%. And if you employ a lot of young people, potentially up to 16% increase. So a big cost for those people who are employing staff from next April, and those guys are going to have to pass these costs on to their customers. Yeah, that's quite a big cost for some of our clients. Big changes. One of the things I was really worried about, but yeah, it's not really a surprise.
Right. Okay. Does it mean that some of this change, some of these minimum wages will means that the cash flow for the payment will be increased? Because
Yes, it's gonna
some
hit
employers, yeah, yeah, yeah. So they're
it's
not
gonna hit
willing to pay
employ
the
it's
same.
gonna hit employer yes, it's gonna hit employers in the pocket very hard.
Yeah. Okay, dokie.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like it, but anyway, let's move forward. What about affect how it will be? This budget will affect each role. I'm sorry, each human resource rules. I mean, so what we should to expect on that matter?
Well, she was very vague about this in the speech. She basically said that she made a few jibes at the Conservative government, saying that they were going to introduce rules that made it more difficult to get rid of poorer performing employees. But she didn't actually specifically say what the rules were. She just says that they intend to bring in some significant changes to employment law to protect employees, particularly about maternity pay, paternity pay, unfair dismissal, and notice period. So I think that we were expecting them to introduce rules that people would get full employment rights from the day they started, rather than having to wait 2 years, which is what the current rules are. As I say, she didn't give any detail. She just said that that was something that we would find out about. So we need to wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think they're not ready to announce it now because it's such a negative thing, isn't it? I think so. She doesn't want. She's just. They are not prepared. This is my opinion. Anyway, right. So, okay, we're finished with this minimum wage and HR rules updates. What about the fuel? What about the fuel duty?
Oh, well, this is some good news. So we were expecting them to end the fuel duty freeze. So next year, the increase in the fuel duty, which is the tax that we pay on our fuel, basically our petrol and our diesel. The previous government had a freeze on that, and we were expecting that to be removed, and in fact, we were expecting the freeze to be increased. She's confirmed that there will be no increases for the next couple of years on fuel duty. So that's brilliant, because of course fuel duty affects everything you buy, because all businesses they're using fuel in their operations to deliver, to come to site, etc. So every business is affected by those sort of things. So an increase in that would be very bad for the whole economy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you for sharing a good news. Right, let me just jump to this topic, national insurance. So, what we need to expect about this, on that matter?
Okay, well this one's not so good news. So if you employ somebody in the UK, on top of paying their wages, and on top of paying that, you pay their pension. You also pay another tax called employer's national insurance. So this is not paid for by the employee. This is paid for by the employer. Okay. Now, the current rate is going to increase by 1.2% on every employee. So at the moment, we pay 13.8% employers' national insurance, and that is going up to 15%. Okay, and it gets worse, because you don't start paying employers' national insurance until your employee earns more than £9,100 at the moment. And what they're going to bring in now is that figure reduces from 9,100 to £5,000. So on top of the increase of 1.2%, you'll be paying another £600 in employers' national insurance for anybody who earns over £9,100 a year. So that's a big cost. Anyone employing someone in the UK is going to have a really big increase in their costs, significantly, and that's the cost of employing people. Now, in answer to a request made by the FSB, the Federation of Small Business, the Chancellor was asked to consider employment allowance. So if you're a small employer, the first amount of employers' national insurance that you pay in a year, you're exempt from. Now that's currently up to a total of £5,000. The good news is she's increased that now from next April, when these new rates come in, to £10,500. So that is going to compensate those smaller employers for these additional employer national insurance rates. So she says that many small employers, those who employ less than 4 people a year, will not pay any additional national insurance as a consequence of the total combined effect of these things. Now, we wanted to get this video out straight away, so we haven't had time to crunch the numbers on that. But that's a real sort of help to those employers who are worried about this increase in national insurance. So my view on that is it's not quite as bad as I was fearing. I didn't sleep very well last night, woke up this morning very, very worried about what they were going to say on this, and that's better than I was expecting. So that's a bit of bad news, but there is a bit of relief on that one.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not okay, to be fair, but what precisely this Federation of the Small Businesses going to do about this issue? Are they suggest any solution, or they just messing around? So what precisely
No. The
to-
FSB lobbied
yeah,
the government to increase the employment allowance, and that's what they've done.
right.
So they've got them that help. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you for sharing. That's quite interesting. I did not follow, to be fair, of this news, because I was thinking that's a bit commercial, but if it's help people, that's nice. All right. So what about the capital giants tax? So what is updates over there?
Okay, so the first thing on capital gains tax is that they're going to increase the percentages that you pay on capital gains tax. So capital gains tax is payable if you buy something and then sell it years later for a profit. So, for example, if you've got a residential property, so you've got a buy to let, if you buy that and then you sell it later, you pay tax on the difference. Okay, now, before this announcement, there were a couple of rates of capital gains tax. There was a capital gains tax rate just for residential properties, and there was a capital gains tax rate for other assets. Okay, and then within those two categories, if you were already a high rate taxpayer, you paid a different percentage rate. What she's going to do is she's introducing a flat rate, a standard rate for all capital gains tax. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you'll pay 18% of the gain. If you're a high rate taxpayer, you'll pay 24% of the gain. So for those of us who are making gains, that's bad news because the rates are going up. But we were expecting them to come down hard on landlords about their residential capital gains tax rate, but that has remained unchanged, which is good news for landlords. However, she started to say that she was going to keep the business asset relief arrangement. So if you're selling your business when you're retiring, at the moment, the first £1 million of gain is only taxed at 10%. Okay. Compared to the rates now 18 or 24%. And that's been a rule that's been around for a long time. In fact, in the past, your lifetime allowance for this was up to 10 million before. So you could sell your business for £10 million and still only pay 10% capital gains tax. And that was a relief to sort of encourage entrepreneurship. She said that she's going to keep the £1 million, but over the next few years, the rate is going to increase from 10% to a higher level. So 14% initially, and then up to 18%. Now, she says that's still lower than the normal capital gains tax rate, but that is an increase. And that's a real problem, because people have been they're working all their lives to sell their businesses based on these rates. So, for example, if you sell your business for £1 million, okay, before these rules, for a gain of £1 million, before these rules, you would have paid £100,000. Now, or when the rules are fully occupied, you will pay £180,000. So an additional £80,000 tax on the disposal of your business. A business that you've been running your entire life, planning to retire and sell it, and you were expecting to pay £100,000. Now you've got to pay £180,000. That for me, that's a tricky one, because that really doesn't encourage entrepreneurship. And if you've been planning your retirement, all of a sudden you're going to be £80,000 worse off. That's a big change. So that's capital gains tax.
Right. Thank you for sharing. However, is it any opportunity to change it after they release the budget? Is it any kind of a step backs? What we can do really? Because to be fair, there's a bit too much, isn't it, for somebody who would like to just to sell the business in the current moment? They for example, can't wait.
Yeah, well, at the moment, we don't know what opportunities there will be to avoid that. But at the moment, those are the rules when they come in. I don't think they're coming in immediately, but I'm not sure about that, because it's fresh off the press. So potentially, if it's not coming in immediately, it might be worth trying to sell your business sooner. But if it starts today, there's nothing we can do about it.
Okay. Right. Okay. Let me jump to the other topic. It's inheritance tax. So that's very sensitive topic. What's new?
Okay. So the one positive thing is that she hasn't reduced the threshold for inheritance tax. So inheritance tax is a tax you pay when you leave your assets to a beneficiary. And at the moment, I'll keep it simple. If you've got a property and you're leaving that to your beneficiaries, the first £500,000 doesn't attract any inheritance tax. Now, those rates, those tax-free levels have not increased for many years, and she's decided to not increase them going forward. So there'll be sort of an inflationary creep, because the rates are staying the same, but they haven't been reduced, which is what we were concerned about. So a married couple can leave £1 million in their estate without paying any inheritance tax. So that's good. The other thing is, they haven't changed the rate of inheritance tax, or she didn't announce any change to the inheritance tax, which is very good, because we were expecting maybe the inheritance tax rate to increase from 40% to 45%, or maybe even 50%, which is so that's a positive. There was also talk of rumours of there being capital gains tax payable on death. So as well as paying inheritance tax when you die, there was a rumour that you would pay capital gains tax as well, which would have been double tax. That hasn't happened either. So that's another rumour that never happened. The bad news on inheritance tax is that at the moment, if you leave a pension to a beneficiary, the entitlement to a pension, that pension at the moment is currently outside the scope of inheritance tax. So there's no inheritance tax on a pension. But she announced that moving forward, there will be inheritance tax payable on an inherited pension. Now that is quite a blow, because if you have £1 million in your pension and you leave that to your children, then they will have to pay £400,000 in inheritance tax. Okay. Now, the question is going to be, where does that money come from? Because pensions are not generally held in cash. They're generally held in shares or policies or other things. So in order for the pension scheme to pay that inheritance tax, they are going to have to liquidate assets. So sell shares, sell assets, sell property in order to generate the income to pay that inheritance tax bill. So that is quite a concern, and we don't know how that's going to work, but that could be quite nasty. And then further bad news on inheritance tax. At the moment, if you leave your business or your farm to your children or your beneficiaries, there was a very sensible rule called business asset relief or agricultural asset relief, which meant that asset didn't form part of your estate for inheritance tax. And you might think, well, why is that a sensible idea? But let me give you an example. You're a farmer, okay? You've got a massive farm which has been passed down to your family over the years. The market value of that is £10 million. Okay. Now, when that passes to your beneficiaries, if there's any inheritance tax to pay, where does the money come from? And it's the same with a business. If you've got an engineering business and you pass it on to your children, if there's any inheritance tax to pay, how are they going to pay that bill? Because the business doesn't have that. It's not cash you're leaving to them, it's an asset. So there's always been this extremely sensible rule, in my opinion, that you don't pay any inheritance tax on business assets or agricultural assets. It also includes things like farmland and woodland and things like that. Well, that's all over, because the business asset relief is only going to be allowable for the first £1 million. Okay, and after that you will pay inheritance tax. Now there's a lower rate for business assets of 20%, but you will still have to pay inheritance tax on those business assets which were previously exempt. So let's go back to my farmer. He's got £10 million farm. Okay, he dies. He leaves it to his children. The first £1 million is exempt from inheritance tax. The next £9 million is taxed at 20%. That is £1.8 million. So this farm, when it's handed over to his beneficiaries, has got to pay £1.8 million. Excuse my language, where the hell is that money going to come from? Because that farm isn't a cash, it's not a big pile of cash, it's a farm. The only way to pay that inheritance tax bill is to borrow it or to sell the farm and pay the tax out of the proceeds. So you've got a farm that's been in a family's hands for hundreds of years, and now it's got to be sold in order to pay the tax. Or the children who receive it have got to take on an enormous mortgage to repay that tax bill. That, to me, is the most ludicrous situation. That's why I say this very sensible arrangement was in place before, where the business assets were exempt from this. I have a client who is in exactly that situation that that I just described. His family is now going to. He's old. His family, he's 96. His family are going to have to find £1.8 million tomorrow that they wouldn't have had to find if he died today.
Additional rules will arrive later. Hopefully, it will make people feel a little bit better. But let me just move forward with other changes which we have on the budget. We have a business rates. So, what about the business rates now?
Okay, so business rates, she said that she's going to introduce some new business rate rules with lower business rates for those in the hospitality and the retail sector, which is good. That's a positive situation. But the concerning thing she said was that she was going to pay for that by putting the rates up for other more wealthy businesses. So, a bit vague.
Fun.
We don't know. She just said somebody else has got to pay the bill. So we don't know. So if you're in hospitality and retail, that sounds pretty positive. But I'm not really sure what that might mean for those of us who are not in retail or hospitality. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Yes. Okay. So, all right, let's wait. Don't panic. We will see what will happen. What about the corporation tax now? So, what's the
Okay.
news on that matter?
Right. Well, she said that she was going to give us some certainty about corporation tax rates. She said that they were going to they will be capped at 25% for the next 10 years. Okay. Now that
10 years. Oh my God.
that
Sorry.
to me that
How
sounds
much? I'm sorry.
so 10 years capped at 25% sounds like a positive, doesn't it? But what small businesses, okay, small businesses who earn less than 50,000 a year, they only pay 19%. Okay. She didn't say what was going to happen to them. So you have to sort of read into what she didn't say rather than what she did say. Because she didn't say that those who are paying 19% now are going to continue to pay 19%. She said that businesses will pay no more than 25%. So to me, that's very interesting. And I think she means what will happen is that all businesses, all companies will pay 25%, but she's confirming that you'll pay no more than 25%. So that was a strange way for her to have put it. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of sort of sleight of hand going on there.
Yeah, right. Okay. What about the stamp duty? Any
Okay, so
positive or
stamp
maybe
duty.
negative? Or just-
Stamp duty is a tax you pay when you buy a house. Okay, there are certain reliefs for those people who are buying their first house, or if they're buying a house which is not as expensive as other houses. But there is a thing called a residential surcharge. If you buy a second house, you pay an additional stamp duty. Okay, and that stamp duty, the current rate is 3%. She announced today that rate is going up to 5% from tomorrow for those people who are buying their second property. Now, this is mainly going to affect buy-to-let landlords, okay, who are buying their second property. So, in this country, if you buy a property on top of the 100 grand to buy the property, you now have to pay, if it's your second property, 5,000 quid just for the joy of buying that property to the government. There's a bit of a pattern here. There's a 15% charge on employing people. There's now a 5% charge on buying a second property.
Right.
I guess it's aimed at landlords, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. It's, but yeah, that's a 2% additional stamp duty when you buy your second property.
Right. Thank you. That seems like a bit, keen, isn't it? I do understand they are laborers. I do understand they kind of a concept, but it's like socialism, kind of they would like to make all the people be similar with their finance, yeah. But at the same time, we have a capitalistic economy, so it's a kind of utopia, yeah. That's utopia we're talking about. We're talking about absolutely utopia, yeah. That's not gonna happen. I don't know. I really don't believe in it, but anyway, let's move forward. What about the landlords? Yeah, because you talk about this sensitive target audience and how they will be affected. Could you just tell me a little bit more? Let's deep dive.
Yes, well, surprisingly, landlords seem to have come out of this relatively well. So we heard in the manifesto and from Labour about what they were planning to do, and they were saying landlords, they were going to impose things to stop the prices of rent increasing too much, those sort of things. Now, with all of this, we have to sort of consider that they might be making announcements outside of the speech, which we don't know about. But if we take the speech at its face value, the only thing that was affected landlords is this stamp duty, this additional 2% on the stamp duty. We were expecting them to increase the capital gains tax rate for landlords. They didn't do that. They've actually increased the rate for normal capital gains to the same rate that the landlords pay. That we were expecting them to maybe try to charge national insurance to landlords. She didn't announce that. We were concerned that she might introduce special rules for landlords operating through a limited company to try and stop that process, which people have been using to try and mitigate their taxes. But if we take what she said in the budget at face value, the only thing really affecting landlords is this increase in stamp duty. And of course, that is only for landlords who are buying new properties. There isn't anything that's going to detrimentally affect landlords from what we've seen as a result of that budget, which is positive, provided they're not trying to pull the wool over our eyes with announcing stuff outside of the deal.
Right. Yeah, I'm a bit, to be honest, Jay. I just listening to you today, and I was feeling a little bit anxious all the time when you're trying to say me some news. I'm kind of get my heart in things rates, whatever it is, blood pressure, getting out from my head to some other parts of my bodies because it's such a sensitive things. And I'm not feeling really safe now. I'm just kind of, oh my God, this is a dangerous. This is dangerous all over now. But let me try to stay positive, because I hope that the people who got the power, they know what they're doing, and they're not trying to hurt the people. They're trying to just to regulate the finance of the government, and they're trying to get some balance, because it's really really kind of a challenge for them. Because talking about the Rishi Sunak, he used to be a finance guy. Okay, he used to make a prediction, and he based his decision on the prediction. Talking about these guys, I'm not really sure how they making decision. There's a kind of a mysterious process over there. I don't really know. And the fact that the budget is always bring just before the Halloween, it's not really nice, isn't it?
Well, it's not always done near Halloween, but it is this year, and I think that's appropriate because
Yeah.
it really is a scary, spooky story.
It is. It is. It is a very spooky Halloween budget 2024 in the UK ever. I just like, I don't know, probably this is kind of my stage of mine, or probably this is so, yeah. But anyway, let me just try to be positive. Have we left any time? Just remind me, if it's okay, just to have a
Well, I
couple
think
of
I think we probably
questions from.
No. We're there. I think for today. I think we can sort of wrap this up
Yes.
with the conclusion. I think my conclusion is that I was relieved when she shut up because I was expecting a bit of an Apple moment. I thought we were going to have a Steve Jobs where she just goes, "Oh, there's just one more thing," like Steve used to do, and really hit us with something bad. I was very nervous this morning, very anxious, and I was sat there with a real fear in my stomach that it's coming. There was a point in the meeting where she didn't have a drink all the way through, and then after about an hour, she reached and she took her drink, and I thought, oh God, it's coming. This is the bit. Get ready. She's taking a pause. She's nervous. She's going to announce this horrible piece of legislation that we're going to hate. Here it comes. But she just carried on. So
Well, Jason,
I think there's some
should be
really
so
tough.
happy with this woman. She did well.
There's some really tough stuff in this budget, but I think it does affect the people who people will have less sympathy for. It's going to affect people who are selling their business for millions of pounds. It's people who are inheriting millions of pounds worth of assets from their family. You know, in reality, they've found a way to increase the national insurance and found a way to actually make that not quite as painful for the owner-managed businesses. So I think they've done a good job of winding everybody up to think this was going to be horrendous. And I don't think it's quite as bad as we feared. It's pretty bad for some people. Some people it's going to cost them a lot, but those are people who perhaps do have broader shoulders. I was very pleased to see that they've done this help for those people who are employing people with the national insurance limit. But it's still where she's raising £40 billion worth of additional tax. And that's going to hurt. So I think my conclusion is it's definitely bad news for some people, but I think it's better news than we were expecting for the business owners. And as that's who all of my clients are, I think I'll sleep a little bit better tonight than I did last night.
Right. Okay. So, do you have any advice or something just as a last bit for our conversation today?
I think the advice I'd say is it's a bit too soon to take any rash decisions because a lot of the detail will come out in the next few days. So with these sort of things, the numbers are very big. And so I think each case needs to be looked at on its own merits. So my advice, as you would expect, is talk to your accountant and see if there's anything that you can do. But don't make any rash decisions for now.
Okay, I see. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your advice today and for your analytic work on this budget. So I would like to thank you one more time, and I would like to thank you to all our followers, guys. You need to follow us and on the YouTube. Just wait for that and wait for our social media announce, and please like us, give us some comments, please share your opinion, take a step into our discussion. We will be more than happy to answer to all your questions on our email betteraskj at gmail.com. Right. So thank you very much, guys. Have a lovely spooky time, and don't
Yeah.
hesitate just to get in touch with us.
Okay. All right. Cheers, everyone. Thanks. Hope you found that interesting.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jason. Bye.